So in this video, I'm going to go over the setup for game 4 from prep test 38. All right, so this one's pretty tricky. We have musicians perform each of exactly 5 pieces. And so the pieces are the first initials anyways, are listed up here. So those are going to be our players. These are going to be sequenced or ordered. So the musician will perform each of these pieces once and one at a time, so no ties. The pieces are performed successively, though not necessarily in that order. Okay, so there is an ordering component. And then we get extra information about the pieces, and each of the pieces is performed with exactly 2 instruments. If you look at all of the information about the pieces and the instruments that they're performed with, you'll notice that there are 5 different instruments, and that we have 2 pieces kind of per instrument. So yeah, that's how that works. And then we get 2 conditions. So the first is that each piece shares 1 instrument with the piece performed immediately before it or after it, or both. So we don't have to have, for example, let's say N is second, which is an option. That's part of that final condition there. Either N or T is performed second, so that's what I have here. But so N is F and L are the instruments. I'm just going to use the letters so that I don't have to remember fiddle and lute every time. But so N has F and L, right? That doesn't necessarily mean that the other F instrument has to be on one side and then the other L instrument has to be on the other side. That could be the case, right? We could have TNV, but we don't have to. And, you know, with V, we're going to have LM. We could have O here, right? And O has M and H. And then S would be the final one and has H and G. So we might assume that it has to be like that, right? Where they always have to have one in common with the one behind them and one in common with the one in front of them, but that's not always the case. What we do know, though, is that if you are on the end of the sequence, so this is a sequence 1 through 5, if you're first, you have to have one in common with the player that goes second, and if you're second, you have to have one in common with the player that goes first. So there has to be something in common between these 2 and something in common between these 2. That's why I have these guys circled. For the third one, they can have something in common with the second or something in common with the fourth, or both of them. But that's going to be the key, right? So we either have, you know, 1 and 2 grouped together, 4 and 5 grouped together, and 3 having something in common with 2, 3 having something in common with 4, or 3 having something in common with both 2 and 4. But I'd focus more on these, and in particular, I would focus on what the second player could potentially have in common with the first player. And since N and T don't have any in common, right, with O, there's, yeah, absolutely none in common there. O cannot be first. So you might see that proves to be useful. So here's the setup. See what you can do with the questions, and then let me know if you have any trouble with those, and if you want me to go over specific questions.